Hey guys, welcome back to the Nobody Asked podcast. I'm your host, Sam, and I'm super excited to be back another week in a row. I want that to be noted that I think we're like 3 or 4 weeks back to back, so maybe I'm being dramatic, but I think it might be safe to say that I'm back on a regular schedule, and I'm very excited about that. And to prove my loyalty to you, I'm just saying it's Tuesday at 10:05 and I just started recording. 10:05 p.m. I work tomorrow and I work from home, so if you didn't already know that, this is crucial information for you. But I have to go into the office tomorrow, and I had to go in yesterday, and I never have to go into the office. And I love working from home, so you can imagine that I'm fragile. But that's okay. I'm still filming an episode at 10 o'clock. I literally did my makeup at 9:30. Got out of the shower at like 9. So, yeah, I'm not happy about that. But that's okay. I have pretty much nothing to update you guys on. Doing this whole like week to week, back to back episode thing is really fun. The only issue is that I just literally have nothing to update you on because nothing happens in my life. But that's okay. So I've really been liking the like 30 minutes or less episodes lately. So that's what we're shooting for. And since I have nothing exciting to update you guys on, let's just start the episode. Since it's the beginning of April, I kind of figured college graduation season is right around the corner. So I thought this would be a fitting episode. But we're going to talk about how graduating college humbles you. But I feel like people tell you all the time when you graduate, like, oh, the real world sucks, or like it's going to be hard, and like finding a job is difficult. But I feel like everybody kind of feels like it's not going to be them. And like maybe that was just me, but I don't think so. I feel like it's really easy to go into college graduation just kind of being like, oh, like I worked really hard. I was top of my class, or like I have this great portfolio, whatever it is. And I just feel like everybody's like, oh, this is going to be enough. I'm definitely going to get a job. Like, that's not going to happen to me. But the thing that I realized is that that's not always the case. And I think that's something a lot of people kind of get like a hard shock when they graduate, because I think everybody goes into it with that mindset of like, it's not going to be me. And then like more often than not it is, because realistically people get jobs right out of college. Like, I think it just depends on your field. I obviously went to school for something with less job security, so I was expecting it to be pretty difficult to find a job, but I still feel like I went into it being like, but it's like I'm still gonna find one. And like I did end up finding one eventually, but it did take a good amount of time. And obviously you might be listening to this episode and by the end be like, I don't relate to any of this, and that's fine. Like maybe you didn't have a hard time finding a job after college, but I do think there are a lot of fields that people go into that don't have as much job security and like as many jobs available. And like if you don't already know this, I'm a graphic designer, so anything in like the art realm I feel like is kind of like a gamble in terms of going to college for it. And it's really hard because you actually don't necessarily have to go to school for graphic design. I think to get where I want to go, I would have needed to. And like I learned so much in school that would have taken me, I feel like, a long time to learn and like perfect on my own. But like traditionally, it's not like nursing where like you have to have some kind of certification. You literally could just start designing on like with Adobe Creative Suite, and keep practicing and like building a good portfolio. And some positions like you're still going to be able to get with just a good portfolio. And that was something I noticed in jobs when I was applying. There were like a lot of them that did require a bachelor's degree, which was nice to see after, getting one for this field. But there were also still a lot of jobs that just required like portfolio work or like experience. So I just thought that was interesting, and I just think it's really dependent on your career path. But like I said, graphic design is just not something that everyone's going to make it in. You could be really, really good in college, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a job, I think, because it's not like, I keep using nursing as an example, but I feel like that's just like a secure path to go into. But I feel like with nursing, you can kind of, for the most part, like you could move and probably find a hospital that needs that needs people. And I feel like as long as you pass nursing school and you like get I don't know like what the certifications are, like if there's like separate tests or if it's just like passing nursing school. I don't really know, to be honest. But if you're qualified to be a nurse and you have all the things you need to have, I think there's a good shot at you getting a job. But I could be the best designer at Westlib, for example, which I'm not saying I was at all. But I'm just saying in general, I could be the most talented, best portfolio at Westlib, but that doesn't change the fact that there's how many people at all these others. Like, there's just so many creative people, and I feel like the creative field in general makes that more difficult because it's so inspiring to see all of these people creating, but then at the same time, I feel like it's hard to not have like the constant feeling of wanting to be better. Where I feel like a lot of other jobs, you're kind of like, you're fighting for the title, you're fighting for a higher pay, like, you know what I mean, to like progress your career. But I feel like art related careers especially, it's just so easy to end up with like lower confidence during it because there's just so much creativity in the world, and it's such a beautiful thing. And I'm one of those people, like, I love to see anybody being creative, creating anything has always been the thing that like fuels me. But then it's also hard because you're creating things you're so proud of. And then I feel like I go on Instagram or I'm on Behance, which is like a design thing, but I'm like on some kind of social media, Pinterest, and all of a sudden I'm seeing all of these like creative things that like I never would have thought of. And I'm like, I just feel like sometimes by the end of it, I'm like, am I as creative as I thought? Because I don't know. I just think it's similar to what we talked about last week of like social media being a highlight reel of somebody's life. Because realistically, you're still seeing your friends like post about a new position or like a new job that they got, and like you're hearing about their raises and like whatever. And that's so exciting. But it's the same concept as a highlight reel, because when I go on TikTok and I see like people posting their job, or like influencers posting about being influencers, or you see like traveling nurses, I see them on TikTok all the time, like posting about how great that is and like how much they can travel, or like flight attendants, like everyone's posting the highlight reel of their job. But when you're thinking about it, like you're not thinking about your friend that's a nurse that just lost a patient that she was, caring for a long time. You know what I mean? Like you don't see the hard things that somebody goes through. So I feel like it kind of creates an unrealistic expectation going into adulthood, career paths, like everything after college. Because I don't think it's specific to your career path. But when I'm constantly seeing people like post about how much they love working from home, like they're only posting the good stuff about working from home, I feel like when I started working from home at first, it was like an adjustment period. And I do genuinely love working from home now. But there was an adjustment period where all I'm seeing is all these people with their walking desk, like in the routine, and they're posting these aesthetic TikToks about how much they love working from home. And then I'm working from home and I'm like, I literally woke up 10 minutes before I had to start. And like, that was just because I wasn't in a routine yet. But like, because I'm constantly being flooded with that content that is showing such a positive aspect of something that is still a hard, demanding job, I just felt like I was like broken. Like, I was just like, why am I not like waking up at 6 a.m., working out? Like, why is my whole life not in order now that I work from home? Because it feels like everybody else is. And like, so much of that changed when I started getting in like a better routine. But I feel like I was down bad for a while mentally. And I feel like so much of that was because I was like, what am I doing? Did I make a mistake? Like, thinking I want to work from home because I'm seeing all these people say they love it. And then now I'm like, oh God, like I couldn't even imagine not working from home. But at first I was like, am I broken? Like, what's up? So I think that you just, sorry, I'm kind of circling back, but I think ultimately the hardest thing to accept, and like I couldn't accept this at the time and I realized it like later, but I feel like it's kind of the like, you don't know what you don't know. But at the same time, because you just spent 4 years leading up to this, you're like, oh, okay, I'm ready. But I feel like nobody's actually ready until you work a couple months to a year in your career path. And even at that, you're going to learn things, but you're still going to have so much to learn and so much growth for the next few years left in you. Like, you know what I mean? And I definitely understand that it's different depending on your career path, because I know like teachers spend so much time in college, like doing their student teaching. Nurses spend so much time in the hospital while they're in school. But like in some fields, you don't even really know what it's like to actually do that day to day. But I'm spending 4 years of my life planning to do that for the rest of my life. And then what happens if after the first year I hate it? And I'm like, why did I pick this? And luckily that wasn't what happened to me. But realistically, there are so many people that don't even like work in the field they went to school for, like don't do what they went to college for. So I feel like you just don't realize how little you actually know until you just get kind of like dropped into it. And then I feel like that first year is so hard, but like there's just so much growth. And again, this was just my experience, but I feel like the employee I was on my first day of my first big kid job versus my last day there before I got this job, it was almost exactly 1 year that I was there. And I was an entirely different person walking into that job than I was walking out. And not just because I was a year older. And like, yes, there were so many things about me that were different in that year. But I think being in my career path, like really honing my skills, realizing like what I'm good at, and like actually applying what I learned in school in a practical way, and like seeing it happen in real life and getting that like real feedback on it, I feel like was one of the biggest shifts in me in that year. Because realistically, anybody is going to have a confidence boost and kind of start to appreciate themselves and like their talent when they're seeing all of the things that they worked so hard for finally pay off. And I also think it's not even just career based. I think you just realize there's just so many things in life that like you thought you knew, but you don't actually know. And like, again, everyone's life's different. Maybe it's just like my, like things that I didn't or did learn in school and like didn't retain, or like things my parents didn't teach me or things my parents did teach me. But I feel like when I graduated, I would have loved for somebody to tell me this, but also I feel like I might not have listened or like believed them, because I feel like you have to live it. But like, I would have loved to realize that like most adults are kind of winging it, and like life is just kind of winging it at this point. And I like, obviously some people are winging it way harder than other people, but like realistically, you've never been 30 until you're 30. You'll never be 50 until you're 50. My grandma's never been 80 something till she's 80 something. You know what I mean? But I feel like your whole life kind of feels like you're winging it. And then it's like times 100 right when you graduate, just because it's such a big transitional like period in time for you. And I just think people don't talk about the mourning phase of college either, because I had to sit there and like kind of grieve who I was and like figure out who I'm going to be as an adult. And not everything about you is going to change, but at the same time, you are kind of reinventing yourself because you have to, because it's an entirely new experience. You're getting a job. You're not in school for the first time in years. So I kind of feel like you just have to adjust. And if you take anything away from this podcast, I hope that it's every single person is going to adjust at a different speed, in a different way, on a different path, whatever. And that's okay. And even if you don't believe me right now, if you're about to graduate or you just graduated, honestly, if you're in the first 2 years since you graduated, I graduated, it'll be 2 years. So if you're in your first 2 years and you're like, I don't believe that, like you just don't believe me, that's fine. I probably wouldn't have believed me either. But I think if you can take this away from it, I wish that I would have been able to see the bigger picture. And I think I would have had an easier time if I realized, yes, this isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, but I can still make it what I want it to be. Like, I wasn't having luck finding jobs, but I didn't stop. I didn't give up. I didn't like decide to take a different career path. And I ended up where I wanted to be. It just took time. But I feel like when, like, me and Kylie kind of talked about this in our episode together, which that's my best friend. We did an episode about after college. But I feel like when you go to school for something, you just assume, okay, I put in the work. I went to school. I got the degree. I got what you needed me to get. So where's my job? And I feel like it's just so hard to comprehend having to work your way up, even though it's like, it's not even like you mind working your way up. Like, at least for me, it wasn't. Like, I didn't care about not being an art director 10 seconds after I graduated, because that's not realistic. So I didn't care about that. I think you spend all 4 years of college having a clear picture of what your career is going to be like, and nobody's thinking of like what it's going to be like when they're an intern or like when they're in their first year getting coffee. You're thinking about like your dream, because that's what motivates you to get through school. And then you graduate, but you're still years from that dream most of the time. And at first I was like, it's me, I'm not as good as I thought. But it's not, I'm not anything special. Nobody is special. It's not just you. Everyone, not everyone, most people experience that when they graduate college. And another thing that I think, this was just a me thing, I don't think this is like a general, everybody had this experience, but I'm sure some people can relate to it. I definitely took for granted the power of networking. I know it's important. I understand why people do it, but I feel like some people have like the not me mindset, which then, I don't know, I just didn't feel like it was that important, even though it actually is. And I kind of wish that, like, maybe this is just my school, but I just felt like my specific department at my school didn't stress enough networking and like how important that is. So I think it just depends on the school and the major, but like that was just something that I kind of wish that I would have known. And even in my last year, it would have been nice to just know that that was going to be a problem and like put myself out there a little bit more. But that's just kind of a personal thing. I just think, but I think in school, you're just a little bit naive to like the ins and outs of like the actual workings of being in your career path. I feel like sometimes it's hard to grasp that we live in a world where it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I think part of why it's so hard to think about that in college and like fully understand that is because you're working so hard. So it's like, why does it matter who I know? Because I'm working so hard at what I'm doing. But that doesn't always mean success. And for a lot of people it does, but there are a lot of companies and a lot of businesses where it really is who you know. So that's just something I feel like was kind of important to say, because that was definitely a humbling thing for me. Honestly, though, I would say the most humbling part of graduating was adjusting to like a new routine, like the adult life, but not really feeling different. Like I graduated, so like I know I'm supposed to be an adult now and like I have a job and I'm supposed to be acting as an adult, but I'm still 24 and I still only graduated 2 years ago. So like I get that things are different, but it doesn't feel different. It's like the day after your birthday, you don't feel older. After you graduate college, you don't feel graduated the next day just because you graduated yesterday. So I feel like it's just kind of like I don't know, I always say it's a roller coaster, but I do think it is, because nothing can truly prepare you for the transition, for transitioning into your career path, for having to grieve your, like, losing your friends. And like, you don't lose your friends, but you don't live as close to them. Most people move home or like move for a job or where they're from or whatever. So it's just so much adjusting all at one time. And I feel like it's just so many different, like, not hopes and dreams being let down, because that's super dramatic. Like, I still got a job. But it's like the expectation that you had been building up for years is going to take longer to get there. But I feel like it just feels like, okay, I graduated, now I should be there. But that's not how it's going to work. And I think that was something that was just so hard to grasp. There's just a lot of firsts. There's moving out, having babies, people are getting married. Like, life is just going to continue to happen. And I feel like at first it was really easy to feel overwhelmed and kind of be like, when is everything going to slow down? But now I'm kind of starting to realize that I don't think it does slow down, but in a good way, if that makes sense. I also feel like people don't talk about like the financial side of graduating college. Because, like, obviously, you know, you're going to have to pay your student loans, but, like, it's not like we really, I don't know, they make it so hard to do everything. Like, they make it hard to figure out how much you owe. They make it hard to fill out all the forms. Like, they just make everything difficult, but also you have to pay it. And I'm like, okay, then make it more user-friendly. And I also feel like a lot of people don't have much credit when they graduate college. But again, that depends, I think, heavily on your like family situation. Because I know a lot of people whose parents like set them up in that way. My parents are very different than that. So there was just a lot of like adult things that I didn't learn in school, obviously, but then also had to learn on top of like trying to find a job and like figure all of that stuff out. And I don't think graduating in the midst of like the aftermath of the pandemic helped either. I graduated in 2021 spring. So it was like really not that far after. And like my whole senior year was during the like pandemic anyways, so it was just like weird. But I do still feel like rediscovering who you are after college and like outside of the dynamic that you've been in for the last 4 years is one of the most challenging parts of graduating. But I also think it ends up being like one of the best parts, because I liked who I was in college, especially towards the end. I feel like I changed so much, even in like the last like 2020 to now. I feel like I've just changed so much. But even from when I graduated college to now, I've changed like a ton. And I feel like I liked who I was in college. So whenever we first graduated and I was kind of like finding a new adult me, I was like missing college me. Like I was missing like being fun and like wanting to go out on weekdays and like not always want to stay home and like be tired from work and whatever. And even like, because I have a creative career path, it's a lot harder to be creative and like do these like long projects and things that like I had the extra time for in college, because I spend all day being creative for somebody else. So sometimes when I need to be creative for my own stuff, I'm like, I'm just drained. I have nothing left. But I feel like once I kind of started to balance that and find a new routine and like figure out who the adult me is and let go of college me, it ended up actually being like the best thing to ever happen, even though for like a year there it felt like the worst thing ever happening. But like I love who I am as an adult. Like I literally say to Tony all the time when we're like drunk or like just like laughing hysterically in bed, whatever, I'm always like, we're cool adults. Like I like this version of us. But I said this a few episodes ago, but I like low-key wish that I could go back and just like whisper to myself, you're really gonna like who you become. Because there were a lot of years that I didn't think that I was gonna like who I become. And I just wish that I could like go back to like 5 year ago me and just be like, it's gonna get better, you're gonna figure it out, you're gonna go to therapy, you're gonna get put on the right medication, you're gonna meet the best people, you're gonna end up actually loving your career. Because for me, I actually, this is off topic, but I feel like this is important. I don't think I've ever talked about this, and I am going to do an episode completely dedicated to like being a creative and like in a creative field. But I did not like design school at all. And I feel like that's not, I mean, nobody likes school. Well, some people like school, but like, I feel like most people like what they're going to school for, but like are ready to be done with school and just be doing it. I didn't even really feel that way. I was kind of like, I'm getting a degree in this because this is what I think I'm good at, and like this is what I thought at the beginning I wanted to do. But there were like 2 or 3 years. I was in college for 5 years because I transferred, but there were like 2 or 3 years where I was like, and they were all kind of towards the end, which is even scarier, where like I genuinely did not think I wanted to be a designer anymore. And did not think that I was going to even end up doing this like after college, and I didn't think I was going to like it. And I was just telling Tony the other day on the phone, it's just crazy because now that I've actually worked like a year and a half in my career path, I'm like so happy that something kept me going because I love what I do now. But I didn't like going to school for it. I didn't like the schooling environment, the process. Like I didn't like any part of going to college for graphic design, but I love being a graphic designer. But I also feel like for people it happens the other way. They liked going to school for it and then they graduate and work a year or two in the field and they're like, I hate this. And I just don't think people talk about it a lot because I feel like nobody wants to be like, I hated, like you graduated college and you want to be able to just be like, fuck yeah, here's my diploma, I'm so proud of this. You don't want to be like, oh, I still don't think I want to do this, but here it is. You know what I mean? Like, and if you went to school for it and you were like, fuck yeah, look, I graduated, in 2 years, you don't want to be like, so I fucked up and I actually hate it. You know what I mean? But I do think people need to talk about it because a lot of people go to school for something and then hate it after a few years, or a lot of people the other way, like don't like it, stick it out, and then end up loving it. So I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with that. I just think it's important to know that no matter which one of those two you are, there are millions of other people going through that. And you don't have to graduate college and then instantly become an adult and have it all figured out the next day. But that's how it felt when I graduated. I felt like everybody was moving out, everybody was moving in together, everyone was getting engaged, everybody was getting a job in their field, like was buying a house, whatever. And I was like, why is nothing happening for me? But like none of them were people in my career path. Like they were all people that had like completely opposite, like science based, like more job availability jobs. And I think it's just so easy when you graduate to assume that it's going to feel different right after it happens. But again, it's like your birthday, it doesn't feel any different. I graduated. Now I just live in my parents' attic, which to be honest, at the time, like now lit. I love living in the attic. Like I'm content with where I'm at. But at the time when I felt like I was supposed to be further than I am for some reason, just because I graduated college 48 hours ago, I feel like it was so hard to just move home. And like being a poor college student is different than like being the poor kid trying to find a job that lives in their parents' attic. And like they're really still the same, to be honest. I graduated like 10 minutes ago. I have every right to still be looking for a job and like figuring things out. But I don't know. Moving back home is going to be its own episode. And I have great parents. Like my parents are really cool. They're very low maintenance. Like they're not very worried about where I am or what I'm doing. But like still, the concept of living alone in college and then moving home is a psychological torture for another day. But I'm trying to wrap this episode up, so I will save that for its own episode. And it'll definitely be coming soon because I'm doing like pretty much all college themed episodes for the next few weeks and like career themed just because of graduation coming up. So you won't have to wait too long for that. Oh my God. I just thought of something that I would love somebody to answer. But I would love to know how I'm supposed to work 9 to 5 and everybody else works 9 to 5. Like the people that do my hair, the dentist, the doctor's office, my gynecologist. Like if you all work 9 to 5 and I work 9 to 5, when the fuck am I supposed to get my teeth cleaned and my freaking yearly checkup? And I know that like depends on the career because some people do, like the girl, my friend that does my hair actually does work later in the day. I go at 6, but it's just like a weird concept that we're all supposed to just do things at the same fucking time we're all supposed to be at work. I don't know. And not even just like hair appointment, nail, like that kind of stuff. But like there are stores like okay, I love to go to the thrift store. Love it. But I hate going on the weekends because there's always 5 million people there. But I get done with work at 5 and they close at 6. And like, yeah, it's an hour, but I like get done. And then by the time I like get my shit together, leave, get there, it's like almost 5:30. And nobody likes to be the asshole in the store for the last half an hour. Like they're like 5 seconds to closing and you're still like trying to run to checkout. Like I want to go to the thrift store with my headphones on and spend like 2 hours just looking around through everything. But I can't do that Monday to Friday. And they're closed on Sunday. So it's like Saturday's my only day. And I hate that. And I would just love for there to be some way that things could be open later. But also, I wouldn't want to work until 9, so I get it. But I still hate it. But to wrap this up, I would say lastly, the other thing that I kind of felt like humbled me a lot and was like kind of a rude awakening was just how like uncertain and unpredictable like after college can be, because you think you know what to expect, but then I feel like quickly you realize that you did not know what to expect and it's actually going to be completely different and you just kind of have to adjust. And on top of that, you're now trying to balance like a new routine, so you're trying to find like your work-life balance. And I will say finding a work-life balance is a bitch. Because some weeks I'm like, you know what? I have a good work-life balance. Like, I really do. And then other weeks I'm like, do I know what a healthy work-life balance is? Am I just lying to myself? And I feel like it's just extra hard because obviously your friends like could potentially be moving, like you might not live near anybody, you're kind of like rebuilding your group. And on top of that, you don't even know when you're going to be able to have time to rebuild that group or like make those connections. And I feel like especially at the beginning of like your career, I feel like you're really grinding to like get further and get where you want to be. So I think it's just so difficult to have any resemblance of a work-life balance, but I'm starting to realize in the last few months how desperately important it is to have some kind of a balance. And I'll talk about this in the creative episode, but I literally don't, Monday through Friday, don't stop working. Like I work until 5, and then I pretty much am either like filming or in the art studio, like at my desk, or I'm sitting on the deck with my family, but still on my computer. Like I'm always creating stuff. And I think we're going to also do a burnout episode, but I feel like I'm always kind of like getting mad at myself because I'm like, you're not taking enough breaks. Like you're working, you're going to burn yourself out. But it's so different because yes, it's what I do for a career. So like 9 to 5, I am working. But then from 5 to midnight, I'm working technically because I'm still doing the same stuff. Like I'm doing designing, social media stuff, whatever, for my own stuff. So it's just like a weird concept because I am still working, but I'm not because these are my passions. But whether they're my passion or not, it's still my career and it's still what I went to school for. And I'm still using the same computer that I've been using all day and the same programs I've been using all day. And like a lot of like my brain, like you can't really control it. So I feel like a lot of my brain bleeds together. And like I'll have the idea while I'm working and I'll write it down for like after work. But then I'll be after work doing like my podcast and have an idea for work. And then I'll write that down. And it's just like, it's weird, but I really, really, really recommend finding any kind of a work-life balance as soon as possible. But I also think you have to be willing to realize that a work-life balance is like a wave and they're coming and going. And some weeks it's super balanced and other weeks you're like, I hate this. This is unhealthy. And then I feel like other weeks I'm like, I had a good week. So I don't know. I feel like it's just a lot. And I don't think it's any different than like what's going to be happening the rest of our lives. Like we're all going to become parents eventually for the first time and like homeowners and whatever, husbands, wives. But I think it's just different because it's so many things happening at the same time. And for some people, it's happening in their old bedroom of their parents' home. So that's, I think that's sad enough for us to end the episode. That was such a bad exit. I'm so sorry. But I hope you liked the episode. And if you are graduating college or recently graduated, then I would definitely come back for the next few weeks because that's pretty much all we're talking about because it is graduation season. So if that interests you, definitely subscribe if you're on the YouTube version. And if you're listening to just the audio version, don't forget to like the podcast on whatever platform you listen on. And you can also leave a rating or review on any of those platforms. And those are definitely a game changer in the algorithm for like podcasts getting discovered. So I would really appreciate any kind of rating or review. And then obviously I would love if you like, subscribe, or follow any of the accounts that have to do with the podcast. It's just at the Nobody Asked Pod _ on TikTok and on Instagram. And then on YouTube, you can just search the Nobody Asked Podcast and it'll come up the logo, which is on my sweatshirt. But other than that, it was really good talking to you guys. If you're getting ready to graduate, I wish you all the luck in the world for the last few weeks. Enjoy it, savor every moment of it, and go easy on yourself because it will be a journey for a while. Okay, I think that's my cue to leave. So I hope you guys have a good rest of your week and an even better weekend. And I will see you bitches next Thursday. Bye.